Are you feeling suitably funky now, Maida Vale? Are you
in style? Yes, yeah.
It seems ridiculous that you're all sitting down after that. You're going to have to stay seated for a while. I don't think that's going to last for too long. Jackie, do you want to come and take a seat on the sofa? And we will let the programme begin. So what the format of Master Tapes, as I'm sure you all know because you're all avid listeners, is a two-part programme. In the first part, I'm going to be talking to Jazzy about the making of Club Classics Volume 1, about what was happening at the time, where it all came from, and the role that some of the people on the stage played as well. And we're going to get some idea of how the songs and the grooves came together. And in the second part, you get to ask the questions. Some of you get to ask the questions here, and we're going to have music throughout. Now, what happens at the beginning of each programme is that each episode of Master Tapes has its own bespoke theme tune, and it's something which... Actually, do you need to be over there for that? Wasting the man's time already. So what we do is we're going to have a blast of something that you know very well. When it comes to its natural conclusion, I want you to make a lot of noise, a lot more noise than you started off with when James Cook was on the stage. A lot of noise, like the Africa Club. Back in the day, loads of noise, and then the programme kicks off. I'll introduce it. There's a short break there because we have a montage that we drop in later, and then we take the programme away. But are we ready? In fact, can I just get some words in there? Can you hear me in there? Who's talking to me? James, can you hear me? Yeah, good. Okay, as long as I can hear what's going on through there, and wheel set and ready. Are you good? Buttons pressed, tape rolling. Take it away.
Wow.
Back to life, back to
was their debut album, a statement of intent that became a soundtrack for the times. Club Classics Volume 1 also included Jazz's Groove, Fair Play and Keep On Moving. That's where we have a little montage dropped in. Now this edition of Master Tapes will tell the story of the making of Club Classics Volume 1, but will also take us back to a very specific time and place. The album was created in London in the late 80s and took a uniquely British sound to a worldwide audience. The guiding voice on that musical journey from warehouse parties to top of the charts is Jazzy B. Jazzy, welcome to Master Tapes.
Thanks for having us.
Now, but of course, Soul to Soul is a sound system. It's a musical collective, and it's crowded here onto the stage at Maida Vale here tonight. And some of the people who appeared on the album 25 years ago, nearly, are here with us tonight, including Ellen Blair of the Reggae Philharmonic Orchestra on violin, Simon Law on keyboards. They were both with us. They were both on the original album. We also have Adrian McKenzie on drums, Kashta Tafari on guitar, Chris Brown on bass, Gillian Morley on violin, Emma Louise Buckner, Samantha Pennells and Jodie Finley on backing vocals, and Jose
on percussion here.
Jose on percussion, who's joined us at the last minute. And along with the band, we have a singer whose voice was heard on the hits Back to Life and Keep On Moving, Karen Wheeler, ladies and gentlemen.
Come on!
Karen, do you want to come over here? Actually, do you want to come and take a seat?
Yeah. Okay. Why not?
Come and cozy up to Jazzy.
Oh, I don't know.
And do you want to sit down because you're going to be standing for a long time? Take a seat, rest, but not on your laurels. Karen, welcome to Master Tapes and Jazzy. Well, first of all, set the scene for us, if you would. I mentioned there London, the late 80s. What was happening at the scene musically that you arrived into, and what did you contribute? What did you change, do you think, as an overview?
Well, fear is fear. I've got to start off by explaining that I started playing music with my sound system, the Queen Silver Jubilee 1977. So it's been an ongoing affair ever since. I was inspired by a lot of my brothers who also had sound systems. I'm one of the people who's from the north, North London, and you know, through those early times in the 70s, I just really think we were really blessed because the music that came through during that time was incredible. You know, I think we just had the best of everything, so I was inspired by so many different artists.
But as you say, Soul to Soul started out not in the recording studio, but in the clubs, and it was very much a social scene before it was a set of artists or a business even.
Well, yeah, there's a great book that's currently out, Sounds Like London, that gives you a real impression of what was going on from the early days.
That's Lloyd Bradley's book.
That's Lloyd Bradley's book, yeah. Okay. And it really gives you a real snapshot of what was going on, you know, from those early days. And from my actual involvement, as far as I know, I lived and breathed the whole experience from the wardrobe, speakers and sound systems, which I guess was my biggest inspiration.
When you say the wardrobe speakers, you mean you were building your own speakers that were big enough to pump out the bass?
Yeah, it was totally. I mean, the sound system is synonymous with most people from the Caribbean in terms of our community. That was literally the voice of the community. We decided to change our concept of the sound system, and instead of being exclusive, we decided to become inclusive, which basically meant we face our audience when we were playing out with the sound system.
What, rather than having you sort of back in the wall, in the corner of the room,
that's right,
like an exclusive club. So you were there putting yourself in the centre of the room when you were playing, and these were sort of, what sort of clubs were you playing? What sort of venues?
Well, you do it
when you first started.
When we first started, we're talking about christenings and the church parties. You know, we used to go off to like Bournemouth or Clacton-on-Sea and stuff. That was my first, other than playing for the street party.
And what year was the first sound system you put on, do you think?
We're talking in the 70s. We're talking, I probably started realistically 76, 77 was the Jubilee, and it really took flight from there, because it was almost like, if I could do this in the street, and a couple of my brothers seemed to be impressed the fact that my amps lasted that long. It was really great because I got the opportunity to And I think this is where the birth of the business thing started, because the £8 what I got, I really got £12, I can't lie. I took £4, I'm really sorry guys. Anyway.
They're taking you that long, they're taking you that long.
Yeah, it's an exclusive. We really got £12, but I invested the other £6 back into the sound, and we bought our first turntable. And I think that really inspired me, because I was just like, you could take the money and run, or you could make your sound better.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, at that time, we were always worried about our amplifiers overheating. We couldn't carry the valve amps out. I used to have two Leak TL12 Plus amps that I would run just for my treble. But I got this massive H&H amp, and for some reason, obviously I know now why it went wrong, but I guess you were just driving it too hard, and halfway through the dance, the thing would just collapse. And most of the sound systems during that particular era did that, but I went one step further, and I borrowed my brother's amp and I hid it in the amp rack. Yeah. You had to do things like that as a sound system.
And of course, Soul to Soul now we think it's very much a musical melting pot in terms of the sounds, and the clue is in the name as well. So you're mixing up a lot of the kind of the funk beats with the soul vocals. But really, back in the day when you were first starting running the sound systems, was it a reggae system?
Myself and Daddy Harvey, it was a reggae sound system from the days of Hornsey Road, Archway School, Tollington Park School, Keskedy Club, Caxton House. We were traditionally a sound system, a reggae sound system.
Yeah.
And the change came about, I guess, again, being in a predicament where they used to sort of say, every reggae person would know this, we used to do a residency at a club in Junction Road called Dougie's Hideaway, and that was on a Thursday night.
Hang on, Karen's saying she remembers that.
No, I didn't know they were playing there.
Were you around there then, Karen?
I was doing a lot of that rock stuff. Lovers rock stuff on a, Brown Sugar business. It's like a trio, vocal trio, female trio we had.
And you were an aphrodisiac as well, weren't you?
Aphrodisiac, yeah, I was doing backgrounds. When I met him, I was doing backgrounds. But before that was writing songs. I was doing lovers rock stuff basically.
You sang with the Jam as well, didn't you?
Jam, Elvis Costello, Phil Collins, Larry Jones, you could go on, and like Erasure, loads of people.
So did you know of Jazzy? Did you know of the sound system? No, you hadn't. While you were making big waves.
I was just doing background, I was happy to be on stage and just going around the world free. And it was fabulous, and they treated me right, so I stayed and got more money, it's fun.
Right. I first came across you, Jazzy, when you used to run shops in Camden Town and market stalls, and this is in the late 80s. And then there was a very famous club when you started at the Africa Centre in Covent Garden. At what point did it become Soul to Soul? When the change of the name and became a brand very much?
Yeah, you see, even the idea of a brand, we were oblivious to all of that, because for us it was truly just a way of life. But I would have thought, I mean, I left school in 1979, and 77 was the first taste, so it was a while, and it all seemed to mush in together. Going back to the name of Soul to Soul, when we used to play at Dougie's, one time he came out and he sort of said, you've got to broaden your horizon, because you're just playing this style of music.
Which was what, reggae?
Which was mainly like Lovers Rock and British reggae and stuff. And he wanted us to play calypso and stuff, but because I was into Bowie and stuff like that, I decided to play a Ziggy Stardust track, and also I've got Elton John's first group, Benny and the Jets. Jenny and the Jets.
You would mix up that sort of stuff, the mainstream rock sound.
Yeah, because I mean, those tunes, for me at that time, even if you listen to those tunes properly, they've got the groove, they've got melody, all of those songs, it just makes so much sense. When you go back and you listen to those tunes, what we were listening to, all of those things are influences, particularly in Club Classics Volume 1. Sure. You will hear nuances of all of those sort of sounds and everything that I was into. The idea of the shops and the market, it started off at the market stalls and the shops and stuff, because it was our way of life. We were knocking out records, we were making our own clothes and stuff like that, and there was this kind gentleman called Maurice Bloom came along, and maybe he made us understand the idea of the commercialism.
Who was he then?
He was a man who owned 70% of the properties in Camden at that particular time. And he basically just needed somebody to look after some of the empty shops. Voila. Opportunity.
And you were running, well, as you say, I mean, what would now be regarded as pop-up shops. Because they used to pop up anywhere, didn't they? And you were already designing the merchandise, the t-shirts, the wristbands, headgear, whatever, before you were established as a musical act. So did you always intend to then take it into the studio? Was there a master plan, a game plan, do you think?
Well, you know,
or did it just evolve?
A sound system, you must make your own dubs. So what happened with Soul to Soul, our following was getting bigger and bigger. And to be honest with you, it sounds a bit whack now, but we just wanted to be the biggest sound system in the world. And there was always that rivalry with different sounds. You would, you know, even when you come to Clash, you don't play the same tune as them. You have to come with a better tune or a version of it. So it just goes to show Soul to Soul were a little bit over the top, because I will cut specials literally every week. And that was from my experiences of working in a recording studio.
Yeah.
Or
I'm going to ask you about that later, but just this ethos that you're talking about, quite competitive, and you're working as an entrepreneur, and this is what we still look back on and regard as Thatcher's Britain. Now, Soul to Soul, never an explicitly political outfit, but in a way you're reflecting the politics of the times, aren't you?
Yeah, because this name Thatcher, I thought it was a geezer at the time. Yeah, I thought, yeah, he's really helping us out. During that particular period, it helped to legitimise what we were doing.
So you mean you would have been happy to have been called a Thatcherite if you'd have known who she was?
It didn't even make a difference to us, because where I lived humbly in Finchley Park, it made no difference. Trust me. Whether it was Ted Heath or Harold Heath, whatever his name was. What was interesting is the times that we were going through. And during those times as well, it was very much the case of we were giving entertainment, so we saw ourselves as pleasure givers under whatever circumstances. Do you remember the adventure playgrounds that used to happen? You know, that was one of our places that we kept meetings. So we kicked people out of the adventure playground and go into the tree house and have our own meetings. And when it got too cold, we would go to the laundrette round the corner, nick a couple of, used to be like 6p them times, you know, the little silver ones, and punch the meter, and then clap the meter at the bottom when we were leaving for double egg and chips on the way out. But, so these were all things that we did because it was like, it was our nature to do so. It wasn't necessarily something we planned out. Right? We always wanted to be the biggest sound system in the world, and the only way you would do that would be to break the sacred code, release a dub plate. Mm-hmm. So what we did, we redone our dub plates, and one of them got to be known as Fair Play. But that's what we did. By releasing a dub plate meant every other sound had to play your tune. And it's sort of like, that's what happened, you know what I mean?
So that was always the idea, to be creating your own music. So you weren't just playing other people's music, you were actually raising the bar in that way.
Every sound system cut their specials and they cut their dubs. So most sound systems copy dubs and they go on whatever the popular rhythm is at the time. We just went one stage further. And the rhythms that we were creating from the tackle that we had, it was more grooves. And those grooves, we would be able to play them in the dance, and a vocalist will come on, or we would do our overlays on whatever that groove was. Everything from Martin Luther King's speech of I Had a Dream, as anyone who was coming to them early warehouse parties would remember that, all the way through to people like Emix on voice and tune, Just Kiss My Baby, to Rose singing, anything from Odyssey, all the way through to Fair Play.
So you take your gang into the studio, and you mentioned Fair Play.
Well, no, there was no studio.
There was nobody there at all.
Back in the shop, mate.
Really?
Yeah.
So how does Fair Play, because Fair Play was one of the tracks that really put you on the map musically. It was the first time that Soul to Soul then had a kind of a musical soundtrack with which you could then sell your wares, I guess. But I mean, how did that start? Maybe you can give us a sense.
Should I give you an idea of how it started?
Yeah.
So that's
this one on.
Back way.
All right, let's just move across then to the decks then, Jazzy. You were starting out everything with Pete initially then?
Yeah, it was all. Sorry. Pass that mark there.
Yeah, let's start this again.
Sorry. So what we were doing in those early days, it was just basically loops. Well, I would just run the loops on acetates, which some people call them dub plates or whatever. And I used to cut them for water. I mean, when I worked at Pi Studios, all the cuts that went wrong, the other side was blanks. So instead of throwing them away, I'd keep them. And that's how I accumulated all those transco acetate. Like, must have over 2,000 or 3,000 of them.
Right.
But every week I would go and I would just try something. And because I wasn't meant to be doing this, I hope it's all right to explain it. But I would go down to Pi Studios and play about with the cutting machine.
So this was the day job then?
This
you were
was, yeah.
working in a studio at the time?
I was an assistant engineer. Basically, I was a T-boy.
Right.
And started off that way.
But learning the tricks of the trade?
Well, that's the only way you really learn is by shadowing the main engineer.
Right.
So, you know, I made the tea and cleaned all the wind instruments, which you know is a pretty gross job. Yeah, getting rid of all the phlegm. Yeah, it was interesting. But my cup of teas are magic, I tell you. I learned how to make tea. But what I would usually do in the night time and everybody was gone and they'd leave me with the keys, mayhem. And we'd start off, I mean,